They say success leaves clues, but what if the biggest clue to becoming a billionaire isn't an idea, an invention, or even a brilliant work ethic, but the address of the campus where you spent 4 years of your life? Every year, the global rich list gets updated, and every year, two names seem untouchable: Harvard and Stanford. They don't just appear on the list, they dominate it. Their alumni are running trillion-dollar companies, shaping economies, and yes, sailing those yachts you see in glossy magazines. And yet, there's one name that feels like it should be number one, but isn't: MIT. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the mecca of innovation, the birthplace of robotics breakthroughs, AI revolutions, and the engineering behind rockets that land themselves. Its graduates have literally changed the world. But when it comes to billionaire counts, it lags behind Harvard and Stanford. Why? This isn't just about smarts. It's about the invisible architecture of opportunity, the habits, the networks, the ecosystems that quietly determine who climbs to the very top. Because while MIT is laser-focused on building the future through technology and engineering, Harvard and Stanford have mastered a different game: the billionaire game. One built not just in lecture halls, but in private dinners, secretive networks, venture capital backrooms, and a culture that treats wealth creation as second nature. Today, we're diving deep into the 4 hidden reasons why Harvard and Stanford produce more billionaires than MIT, reasons you won't find in glossy brochures. We'll uncover how legacy networks give Harvard an unstoppable advantage, how Stanford's backyard in Silicon Valley acts like a billionaire incubator, how culture shapes ambition, and why money flows differently through their alumni ecosystems. By the end, you'll see that the billionaire race isn't just about ideas. It's about the playing field, and some campuses are built right on the 50-yard line. If there's one thing billionaires understand better than anyone, it's that wealth is not built in isolation. It's forged inside ecosystems, environments where the right people, the right resources, and the right opportunities collide at exactly the right time. And in this game, Harvard and Stanford's ecosystems are almost unfairly powerful. Take Harvard. Its alumni network is less a group of graduates and more a global ruling class. On the East Coast, Harvard's influence seeps into finance, law, politics, and the very architecture of power itself. At the heart of this web is Harvard Business School, a breeding ground for venture capital, private equity, and elite corporate leadership. It's not just a place to get an MBA, it's where future CEOs shake hands with tomorrow's funders over lunch. Look at Michael Bloomberg, a Harvard Business School alum who went from Wall Street to building a $94 billion media empire, or Jamie Dimon, head of JP Morgan Chase, or Bill Ackman, the billionaire hedge fund manager. These aren't just successful graduates. They are living proof that when you're plugged into Harvard's network, doors don't just open, entire boardrooms roll out the red carpet. And then there's Stanford. If Harvard is the East Coast power broker, Stanford is the Silicon Valley launchpad. This isn't just about location, it's about origin. Back in the 1940s and 50s, a visionary Stanford professor named Frederick Terman urged his engineering students not to take jobs at big companies, but to start their own right there in the Palo Alto area. That decision didn't just inspire a few startups, it planted the seeds for Silicon Valley itself. Decades later, 2 Stanford PhD students named Larry Page and Sergey Brin would turn a search engine project into Google, with Stanford's mentorship, network, and connections helping them secure early funding. When your campus is a short bike ride away from Sand Hill Road, the global epicenter of venture capital, your ideas don't just get noticed, they get funded, scaled, and unleashed on the world. This isn't new. In ancient Greece, there was a system called patronage, or clientele in Roman times. Powerful patrons would support artists, philosophers, and politicians, not out of charity but to gain influence and loyalty in return. The deal was simple: access for allegiance. Today's Harvard and Stanford networks are modern patronage systems, except the currency isn't sculpture or poetry, it's billion-dollar companies. And if you're inside those circles, history shows you're already playing on a field tilted steeply toward success. History shows you're already playing on a field tilted steeply toward success. If MIT is a forge for brilliant ideas, then Harvard and Stanford are factories for leaders who can turn those ideas into empires. The difference? It's not about who can code faster or build a better prototype. It's about who can assemble a team of hundreds, secure millions in funding, and navigate the cutthroat politics of global markets. Harvard Business School, HBS, and Stanford's Graduate School of Business, GSB, have built their reputations on teaching this exact skill set. At HBS, the legendary case study method throws students into the driver's seat of real-world business dilemmas. You're not just learning about a company's history, you're deciding, under pressure, whether to acquire it, restructure it, or let it die. At Stanford GSB, the approach is deeply interdisciplinary, blending psychology, design thinking, and finance so graduates can see the entire playing field and manipulate it to their advantage. Compare this to MIT, where the education is more hands-on, engineering-focused, and rooted in problem-solving. MIT produces the inventors, but HBS and GSB produce the CEOs who hire those inventors, raise the capital, and scale the vision to $1 billion market. Management thinker Peter Drucker once said, "Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things." Billion-dollar companies demand both. And that's where the Harvard-Stanford edge comes in. Their programs are engineered to mold decision-makers who can inspire investors, lead teams, and outmaneuver competitors. Look at Phil Knight, a Stanford GSB graduate. He didn't invent the running shoe. He transformed a simple sneaker business into Nike, one of the most recognized and profitable brands on the planet. His education didn't just teach him how to sell a product, it taught him how to craft a brand identity, scale global operations, and lead a company through decades of market shifts.
This emphasis on leadership isn't new either. Aristotle called it phronesis, practical wisdom. It's the ability to make sound, ethical, and strategic decisions in messy, real-world conditions. In ancient Athens, this was the skill that made generals victorious and statesmen revered. In today's world, it's the trait that turns a good business into a dynasty. And at Harvard and Stanford, phronesis isn't just an ideal. It's baked into every lecture, case study, and networking event, shaping students into leaders ready to command at the highest levels.
Billionaires don't just rise on talent alone. They rise on platforms. And for Harvard and Stanford, those platforms are built on centuries of accumulated wealth, influence, and an almost magnetic ability to attract capital. Harvard's advantage starts with legacy. Founded in 1636, it has been the academic home of America's old money families for generations. Over centuries, those families, Rockefellers, Kennedys, Morgans, poured fortunes into the university not just out of philanthropy, but to secure their place in an enduring circle of influence. Today, Harvard's endowment stands at over $50 billion, larger than the GDP of some countries. This war chest isn't just sitting in a bank. It's actively funding scholarships, research centers, and elite entrepreneurship programs that give its graduates resources other schools can only dream about. Stanford's story is younger but no less potent. Sitting at the heart of Silicon Valley, Stanford has mastered the art of attracting new money, the fortunes minted from code, chips, and IPOs. Tech billionaires, often alumni themselves, pump millions back into the school, creating a self-reinforcing cycle. Students with big ideas get seed money from alumni VCs, launch startups, cash out, and then fund the next generation. As venture capitalist Mark Andreessen once put it, in a startup, absolutely nothing happens unless you get money. At Stanford, the money is not just nearby, it's practically waiting at the campus gates. It's not just the cash, it's what that cash enables. Massive endowments and deep-pocketed alumni mean better facilities, top-tier faculty, incubators, and direct pipelines to investors. This infrastructure acts like a launchpad. Students step onto campus already connected to the financial lifelines most founders spend years chasing.
The ancient philosophers understood something about this. Plato's concept of dikaiosune, justice, wasn't just about law or fairness. It was about creating a society where citizens had the foundation to flourish. In a way, Harvard and Stanford embody this principle for their students. Their legacies of wealth and resources create a stable, opportunity-rich environment where ambitious graduates can take bigger risks, scale faster, and aim higher because the institution has already built the safety net beneath them.
Every campus has its own rhythm, its own unspoken code about what it means to succeed. At MIT, that code is etched into its motto: mens et manus, mind and hand. It's a creed of rolling up your sleeves, hacking your way through impossible problems, and creating functional, tangible solutions. This is the birthplace of groundbreaking hardware, AI breakthroughs, and world-changing engineering feats. But often, the reward lies in solving the problem itself, not necessarily in turning that solution into a market-dominating empire. Harvard and Stanford run on a different current, one that treats ambition almost like oxygen. At these schools, changing the world isn't just about creating something new. It's about scaling it so massively that it reshapes economies, industries, and culture itself. As former Stanford President John Hennessy once said, "If you're going to make a difference, think big." That mindset turns ideas into movements, startups into market leaders, and graduates into global power players. Consider the contrast. MIT alumni have created revolutionary hardware, like the early GPS satellites and the world's first wearable computers, technical marvels that have changed how we live. Meanwhile, Stanford alumni launched Google, which not only reshaped the internet, but became one of the most profitable companies in history. Harvard graduates have built hedge funds and social media platforms that touch billions of people daily. The difference isn't in the intelligence of the founders. It's in the ambition to dominate the market, not just to solve a problem elegantly. Harvard and Stanford's cultures embrace this brand of ambition, teaching their students not only to dream bigger than what seems possible, but to take the risks necessary to make those dreams real. It's a culture where success isn't just measured in breakthroughs, but in how completely you can rewrite the rules of the game.
From the unmatched power of their alumni networks, to the finely tuned leadership training in their business schools, to the deep wells of financial legacy, and finally to a culture that breathes ambition and risk-taking, Harvard and Stanford have built ecosystems that don't just educate, they elevate. These aren't just universities. They are launch platforms, meticulously engineered to propel their graduates into the highest tiers of wealth and influence. MIT, without question, is the beating heart of innovation, a relentless engine turning science fiction into science fact. But where Harvard and Stanford pull ahead is in providing not just the technology, but the trajectory. They supply the fuel of capital, the compass of leadership, and the global connections that turn inventions into empires. In the end, the path to unimaginable wealth isn't just about having the brightest mind. It's about knowing which doors to knock on, which rooms to be in, and which mountains to climb. Harvard and Stanford have mastered the art of building those paths, and until MIT builds a comparable bridge between invention and influence, the East Coast powerhouses and the West Coast Dream Factory will continue to outnumber it in the billionaire ranks, not because they have smarter students, but because they've built a better map to the summit.